Okay.
So we drove 2.5 hours to get here, hoping to go to a lovely palace, learn about Isabella the Tyrant from Spain. When we got here, we went to the ticket office and all the tickets had sold out.
Yeah, right, so not a great start to part 3 of our travels in Andalucia, but we're just setting the scene, so keep watching and see what happens.
You and me, we're family. The bond that we share is as deep as the sea. No matter how rough things may come to be, you and me, we're family. Sing home, hey, long for the ride home. Hey, I'll stay by your side home. Hey, you'll always be alright by me. Yes, you're alright by me.
And then, to make matters even worse, it started pouring with rain.
Yeah, so we didn't manage to get in today because you have to buy tickets in advance, sometimes even a month. But we're going to come back anyway, at least we know where it is.
But we're going to walk to the palace anyway in the pouring rain, and then we're hoping to go get a hot drink at the cafe.
So we do end up wandering down into the old part of Granada, and we get to see the Alhambra Palace from the outside, from a completely different perspective. That is not a job that I want to do in this weather. And then we find a lovely Moroccan cafe which is kind of inviting us in from the rain. As we know, the Moors had a big influence on the whole area of southern Spain. It was nice. We went for a walk around the palace, and then we went to a very Moroccan restaurant and had some chai, which was perfect. So on our second attempt at going to the Alhambra Palace, this time we booked the tickets early and we treat ourselves to a night in the hotel at €60, which is not bad for a family of 5. Yeah, I suppose we can't deny that sometimes it's quite nice to just hang out in a room with a proper bed. So as any travelling family will know, there isn't much in the budget for hotels or eating out, but when we do it occasionally, we enjoy it and appreciate it.
We're in the hotel and we're just going to try a traditional Andalucian breakfast. Tostada de aceite y tomato, which is toast with oil and tomato. It's kind of like a bruschetta, I think.
I'm going to try the traditional thing now. I'm not a fan of tomatoes, so I don't know how it's going to turn out like, but I'm going to try it. And I think I put a bit too much salt in. It's a weird contrast, but I guess it's okay. I can eat it.
So off we go on our second attempt at visiting the Alhambra Palace. Here we come. Okay, so Alhambra is more than just a palace. It's actually an entire walled city within the city of Granada. Alhambra actually means red one in Arabic, and the actual palace is set just on the edge of the Sierra Nevada mountain range.
Well, you have to put your bag to front because you don't, because I don't know, but you have to put it to front. I don't know why, but
Is it to hide Daddy's big fat belly?
yeah.
Yeah, so look at Daddy, he has to walk around like this with the bag on his front. We think it's really funny, don't we? It was quite complicated getting into the Alhambra Palace. You get your tickets and you get a certain time allocation, so you get to the desk at the time, but then you don't realise that that time is actually the time to get into the Palace of Nazrid. You get it here, but then you've got to walk all the way across to get to the Nazrid Palace by 10:30 or whatever your time is. So even though we thought we did really well and we got here nice and early, we had to walk another 15 minutes to get to the actual Palace of Nazrid. And then you get to go around the rest of the grounds after, but this is the place where they have limited time. You've got to be really, really organised, super organised with this to get here. And yeah, it is worth it when you finally get here. So this place is 26 acres of royal apartments, palaces. There's a whole Medina there. There's also gardens and pavilions full of flowers and fruit. There's forts, there's fountains, and there's even a whole army barracks there, all surrounded by a wall. Right, so we've hired this guide because it just makes it a little bit more interesting. So I'm listening to it and trying to pick out the most exciting bits the kids can relate to, which kind of helps a bit, otherwise you sort of wander around and you're not really sure what it all is. But when the Catholics defeated the Moorish Empire in 1492, it was such a peaceful handover, and that's why they say that the Alhambra Palace is so well preserved. There is a legend that said when the last sultan left the palace on horseback, he turned around with a sigh, looked back at the palace, and there was a tear in his eye. But then he was scolded by his mother for being not man enough to defend it. So they've called this pass, it's the southern pass, the Moor's Sigh. I really like that legend. So the Nazrid Palace was built by one of the 24 sultans. His name was, I've been practicing it, is Nazrid Mohammed ben Al-Ammar. So the palace is kind of divided into three parts. You've got the Mexua, which is the bit where the business and the administration of justice was carried out. That's the first bit as you enter. And then you get to the Palace of the Myrtles, and then round the outside of it is the harem and all the living quarters for the Sultan and his family and his wives. And so we've been through the first rooms, and now we're in the Court of the Myrtles.
Apparently this myrtle went extinct and they managed to revive it, so now it's everywhere in this palace.
So the actual pool was used to help cool the palace in those times, but it was also a symbol of power because water was in very short supply. There was one main channel, the Aquia Channel, which delivered the water to the whole of the Alhambra Palace. So yeah, the Moors leave in 1492, and then the palace becomes the royal court for Ferdinand and Isabella, and it is here that they endorse Christopher Columbus's expedition to the Americas. Apparently the Queen even offered her jewellery to sponsor the journey. The ambassadors' hall was quite spectacular. The ceiling's made of wood and it's supposed to represent heaven, the idea that you have to overcome the 7 layers to get to paradise. The Palace of the Lions is also supposed to symbolise paradise. The 12 lions that go around it, each with a different expression, symbolise the 12 signs of the zodiac, and then there's 4 channels of water running at the bottom which are supposed to represent the 4 rivers of paradise. The Hall of the Two Sisters has this incredible vaulted ceiling. It's really beautiful. Apparently few rulers died a natural death here. There was always plots of revenge and murder. But unfortunately, this is also a room where apparently many knights were beheaded.
The board of the Alhambra and Generalife offer you to touch points where you can touch and experience with copies of original works. Yeah, and just there were 3 beautiful daughters, the most beautiful in Granada, and they were the daughters of the Sultan. And the Sultan went to like a fortune teller who said there was a bad omen about them. So he locked them in that tower, but then there were some Christian knights outside, and the Christian knights helped them escape. So the 2 elder daughters managed to escape with the knights, but the younger daughter fell from the window while trying to escape and died.
The Generalife was a villa dating from the 14th century. It was separated from the main Alhambra complex. The Sultan's Garden, or Courtyard of the Cypress, is actually one of the oldest surviving Moorish gardens. And it was a kind of summer palace or summer house for the sultans to relax in, and the poets used to call it the House of Happiness. The most striking thing about the gardens at the Generalife were the amount of fruit and vegetables that were grown here. Many of them were unknown. So I mentioned the water issue before. So there was a clever network of channels which supplied the whole of the Alhambra citadel. It went to all the gardens and the plants, and there was even enough pressure to supply the fountains as well. So another part of the Alhambra is the Medina. So this was a city within the walls of the city. In the centre of the houses there was a courtyard with a water feature, and then the rooms around the outside. So there were workshops for pottery and silk making, and many of these items were given as gifts to the royal court or to guests that were visiting. So the canal again supplied the water to these workshops. So the final part that we saw was the Alcazaba. When you head up to the tower, you go through Armory Square, and this is where all the troops had their lodgings. So you come out of the military zone into this kind of Italian garden, and it's really strange just the way that, you know, military zone is all about, you know, just your basic needs, and then you come out here and it's a beautiful garden which is kind of on the edge of the wall really, because there's still the massive wall down there, so it's just quite interesting where they fitted it all in. So this is the final bit of the Alhambra Palace. The Nazrid Palace and the whole Alhambra just spreads out over this whole thing. It's massive. There's so many sections to it, and this is the final bit. This is the tower, the watchtower, the bell tower that warned anyone of any danger. That's here, and actually this is the highest point, so you get a really good view of the whole of Granada. And I think it's the bit that kind of really points out what Granada's all about, really. So yeah, pretty amazing. Alhambra Palace is definitely worth a visit. It reminded us of scenes from Game of Thrones, if you've ever seen it. In fact, they even filmed on the bridge at Cordova, which is in our last video on part 2 of the Andalucian travels. Of scenes from Game of Thrones. In fact, we even found out that they filmed some of the scenes on the bridge at Cordova. Bloody thing. Okay, so thank you for everybody for watching these videos, and thank you for sharing them. Thanks especially to the patrons for helping us to get the equipment, to create these videos, to edit and then produce them, and also to get ice creams for the children, to keep them out of the way so we've got time to create these video vlogs. Thanks a lot.
And if you want to do it,